All right. So, good afternoon. I'm here today with Sam. We're here to talk about hiring a personal trainer. My name is Megan Woolerton. I am with Life Force Wellness, and I try to host one of these kind of ask the expert, live Q&A sessions every month. So, if there's a topic that you're interested in, let us know. You can email us at info@lifeforcewellness.com, and we'll pull in experts to kind of help you navigate your health and wellness journey. So, Sam, thank you so much for being here today. I'd love for you to do an introduction and tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Megan. My name is Sam Whitney. I am currently a concierge strength conditioning coach with The Lab. We are a concierge health and human performance company, originally based out of Philadelphia, and we've recently expanded here to Pittsburgh. We specialize in in-home personal training, as well as our corporate and residential side with our partnerships. I spent about 15 years as a college strength conditioning coach before striking out to go into the personal training realm of things. And I've been doing that for about 3 years now. So I come to you all with a little bit of a different lens, different background on personal training.
So, what made you choose personal training? Like, why do you keep doing it day in and day out?
It's really the connection with people, the experiences that I've had since doing that, since moving into personal training have been amazing. I've been so fortunate to partner with the lab and to be able to meet such wonderful people, have amazing teammates, and the clientele that we have. Getting to hear those stories, learning from those people every day. I love a situation where I get to bring my expertise to somebody who's looking for that. Someone who's typically a type A personality themselves, they're a leader in their own world, in their own role, but they appreciate me bringing my expertise, and then I get to hear a little bit about their expertise too. And developing those relationships is what keeps me going day in and day out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things for me, like since becoming a personal trainer, I don't know if you've seen like the meme where it's like, what my friends think I do, what my parents think I do, and then it's like what I actually do, and it's like showing a therapist. Because
Yeah.
I do think personal trainers, we talk about such deep things. We're talking about our health, our weight, what's going on in our bodies, that you do develop a good relationship. You tend to know a little bit of everything about your clients. You kind of become that a therapist, a nutritionist, an exercise coach, a friend. It's really interesting how quickly those relationships do develop when you have the right client and coach matchup, which is, what we're going to talk about today is, making sure you have that right matchup so you can develop that relationship. I know for me personally, I took a different route than you. You went to school for this. I'm sure you are like far more experienced and knowledgeable with the science. Science was never my big thing when it came to the personal training. I was oil and gas for years and then switched to the health and wellness industry. Um, but finding those different paths and the why we're here, is really interesting. And so it kind of gravitates different clientele, maybe that what you get than what I get. And you want to make sure you have that right fit for you. And there's a lot of personal trainers out there. There's a lot of different ways to get quote unquote credentialed to be a trainer or a coach.
Mhm.
And really just, today is all about raising that awareness so that as you go into that New Year's resolution, and that's the time everyone wants to get in shape, and maybe we're shopping around for a personal trainer or a health coach or somebody, we want to make sure that you're getting the right person, somebody who is qualified. And I've been so blessed that some of the clients I've had for like 10 years. They've been with me through multiple kids and career changes and everything else, and I've been there, same thing for them. And it's really about building those good, strong relationships. And I'd love to hear, like, what's the type of people that you find that you gravitate, that you work with, and how do you build that relationship with your clients?
Yeah. The Probably the clients I gravitate towards the most are like I said, those type A personalities, people who know what they want, but are willing to be coached and have somebody assist them in getting there. What I love is just to see the path of progress. I never take credit for any of the results of my clients, and that's because I always tell them, I'm just giving you the roadmap. I will tell you where to change direction or to make a turn, when we need to fit into your lifestyle, the things that are changing in your life. But ultimately, I want somebody and I connect with somebody who is willing to put in the work and not doing so blindly by any means. I appreciate that they take me on as the expert, but I also love a person who's going to ask questions and be engaged in the process and inquire. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but why are we doing the things we're doing? Why do we choose this movement, or why are we taking it easy on this day? All of the things that we prescribe, I love when somebody can be engaged in the process and really takes themselves into that and makes it less transactional for both me and for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So whenever people are shopping for a personal trainer, I think you and we've had some conversations about this on things that
Yeah,
we just really want people to know, maybe questions to ask. You absolutely should be interviewing your personal trainer. You should absolutely maybe have a couple conversations with a couple different people to see who you click with. But, let's start with, qualifications.
sure.
I could go on a rant for an hour about people who are out there that may call themselves a health coach, and really they haven't done the schooling to be a health coach. There's a lot of kind of these multi-level marketing that they have kind of a playbook or a guidebook that they can run their clients through. And not to say that it's not successful. I mean, I know clients that have gone the Optavia route, lost a lot of weight, good for them. Absolutely. But then they become a health coach, meaning that they sell the Optavia program, and that's really all they
Mm-hmm.
know is Optavia
Mm-hmm.
programming product. We saw this with Beachbody, now Body. We see this with the Nutralife and the Amway kind of stuff.
Right.
And so they'll say I'm a health coach, but it's like, but you're really not. You're not like what you
Yeah,
and I think of as being like a actually nationally accredited health coach that's gone through hours and hours of training and test taking, and we have to keep up our continuing education credits. There's a difference there. So what are some of those questions that people should be aware of to ask so they can kind of weed out the truly qualified personal trainers and health coaches from those that are maybe just trying to sell them on a particular program or product? No, Sam, did you freeze on us? No, I think we lost Sam. Can everyone else hear me? Can I get a thumbs up there, Shelley? All right. So while Sam's coming back, I'll share my 2 cents, and then Sam can chime in whenever he's unfrozen there. I know that one of the things I always tell my clients to look for when they're shopping for a personal trainer is to make sure that they are actually accredited. Ask them where their certification comes from. So some of the ones, like I'm ACE certified, that is an NCCA accreditation. So NCCA is that National Credentialing Committee. And, most good gyms and studios will actually only hire trainers that have an NCCA accreditation. So Sam, we were waiting for you to come back. I kind of started off with one of the things I know I ask is asking the trainers, where did their credentials come from, and making sure that they're NCCA accredited, because I've even seen advertisements like become a personal trainer for $90 out of the back of a magazine.
sure.
And that's not at the same level as like an NASM or like an ACE or what is the other ISSA. There's some that are just a little bit higher caliber, and I look for the
Yes,
ones that are NCCA. So I'd like you to kind of
yes,
chime in on what you've seen.
sure. Yeah, sorry about that. I was hoping that it wasn't just my internet, but it looks like it was. You jinxed us, Megan. You
I know I
jinxed
did.
us.
I did. It was my fault.
Um, Real quick, I just wanted to go back and touch on something you said in terms of the process of looking for a coach. And um, I like to look at it almost in two different aspects. One is your research phase, right, where you're looking online. We're all going to start on Google, and personal trainers in my area is probably the best place to start looking. Um, Before we jumped on here, we started talking about the different apps that are available. So Thumbtack, Bark, those are a couple of the websites that are going to pop up first that are good resources to start your search. The second piece of that is when you really get into having a conversation with a coach, feeling them out, and we'll get a little bit more into that here in a moment. But yes, like you said, um, the credentialing of a coach, and this doesn't just go for personal training, although it's what I'm most attuned to, but it goes for all of your professionals. If it's a yoga professional, like you said, a health coach, the term coach is very, very loosely used these days, in my opinion. Everyone is calling themselves a coach rather than having a certification that might say that they're a coach. I heard you mention ISSA, personal training. There's a handful, if not more, of certifications that you can get in just a few hours that you can get online without ever stepping foot in a gym. Or any other sort of fitness facility, or really with any coaching hours underneath your belt. So I think that experience combined with education and certification is huge. There's certifications that are better than others. I don't like to say that certification and certification quality is the be all and end all to your hiring the coach, because the certification at the end of the day does say this person has invested some time and resources into learning about the profession. But what you mentioned with some of the health coaching is that often what we get to see on the as the consumer is the success of that person, right? We see the clients that have done well under that system. It doesn't necessarily mean that that coach or personal trainer is able to adapt to your lifestyle, your wants, your needs, your goals. So when it comes to a prefabricated system, we're often seeing the results of people who fit well into that system, and we don't hear about all the use cases where uh, that system just wasn't right for them.
Hmm. Absolutely. And to your point on the research, something else to mention is I know like as you're doing your research and you find like certain organizations that may be certified, like I know ACE, NASM, Precision
Mm-hmm.
Nutrition, like they actually have a directory of people who have graduated from their program. So if you want to go like even straight to the source and kind of weed out, like, okay, I know this is a good certifying agency. I've done my research, now I can go to their directory and see who in my area is certified. I know the trouble there is sometimes there's people that get certifications, they become a personal trainer, a health coach, nutrition coach for like a couple years, and then they hang it up and go do something else because it's
Yeah.
a demanding job. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody. It's not for the weak, that's for sure. Um, but weeding through some of those, but that's another great place to go, the source. The other thing too that you mentioned is, with the certifications, there's so many different ones. I don't think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
from the outside understand, like, even though I'm a personal trainer and a health coach, it doesn't mean I can go teach a yoga class. There's a
Right.
whole separate schooling for yoga. I took different certification classes for kettlebell, for cycling
Sure.
classes. There's so many out there, and really understanding what is within your scope of practice.
Yeah.
So when you're having those conversations, I think some of the things you need to discuss with your coach is, in what areas can you assist me and what areas are kind of off limits? I know for me personally, one of the reasons I went and I got my nutrition coaching certification is because I was working as a personal trainer, and it's so easy that, we're going through the exercises and then it's well, what should I be eating for recovery? Technically, as a certified personal trainer with the certification I got, it was outside my scope of practice to give
Yeah.
nutritional advice. And
Yeah.
so I would have to refer out to somebody. So then I got the nutrition coaching certification to give me some more knowledge that I can now answer those questions, but still only to a degree because I'm not a licensed registered dietitian. So I can't make like quote unquote meal plans for people. I can give guidance. We can talk in broad terms. I can talk about recovery and how to fuel up the body. I have that knowledge. But if you wanted like a specific meal plan, or you have a health issue and you have to eat a specific way, I still have to refer out. And it's finding that right scope of practice. And I'm curious, like, have you run into any things where maybe like you've had to refer out or you've had to talk to clients about really where those boundaries are?
Sure. Yeah. I think those are all fantastic questions to include when you're interviewing your coach. And um, I think, as a professional, Answering honestly, first being able to say, that's outside of my scope of practice, but having the network and being able to refer out to other professionals is hugely important. And that sign of humility to be able to say, I don't know. One, either if it's a question that I can answer, I just don't know the answer right now, I will do everything I can to find out for you. Secondly, if I'm not able to do that, I'm humble enough to say, that's outside my scope of practice, but I have this wonderful network. I will gladly refer you out to to someone else who is capable. And I think, again, the company that I work with, the lab, one thing that makes us so special is we've developed that network. What we've done is we've taken personal training as our bread and butter and turned that into a team of experts and professionals in those different realms. So if it's yoga, Pilates, nutrition, you name it, we're constantly partnering with other professionals to bring them underneath our umbrella to provide the maximum level of care for our clients. But yes, it's something that I run into all the time when it comes to yoga. Uh, Plenty of clients will want to mix in yoga with their personal training, their strength training. Um, I can show you some mobility. I can show you some flexibility. We can call them yoga terms. But if you want me to take you through a 45-minute or an hour long yoga flow, I will gladly refer you out to somebody else so that you're getting your money's worth and you're getting the results that you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing is finding the trainers that are willing to go, you know what, I want to make sure you're getting the best value. And I think it speaks volumes when you find a trainer that says, maybe I'm not the right fit for you. So if you are shopping a coach or a trainer and you hear that, do not be discouraged, I think is another thing. Because I know I've had to go to people and say, you know what, I'm not the best coach for you. And that's why I love to
Mm-hmm.
even connect with trainers like yourself, because, I think for any new trainers that might be listening in on this too, if you're considering becoming a trainer, don't get discouraged if you have to turn someone away, and don't look at other personal trainers as competition. Because, like, I know for me, the gym I work at, there's a couple of trainers that are specific strength and conditioning coaches, right? So they love to work with young athletes specific to like wrestling and football and those kinds of things. That is not me. I always say I'm the perfect trainer for the average Joe and Jane, who is just looking to lose a little bit of weight, maintain. Most of my clients are between the ages of 55 and 65. So they are semi-retired or retired. And it's just a, hey, I need someone to come in, keep me moving. I want to make sure I'm aging gracefully. I'm not in a routine. This keeps me in a routine. Those are my people. Not to say that I haven't helped certain women lose weight for a wedding, but I wouldn't say that I am like a weight loss specialist. I
Mm-hmm.
got my weight loss certification, but that's not the clientele I really like to work with, because I find those clients, they lose the weight for a wedding and then they're not looking for the
Right.
long-term change. I like working with the people that are in it for the long term, which is why some of my clients have been with me 10 plus years. Because this is I become part of their routine. We're changing it up, we're aging gracefully. You take on a whole different clientele. And I'd love for you to talk about the type of clientele that you take on and why it's so good to connect with other trainers.
Sure. First, I want to just touch on something you mentioned briefly. There is experience. I think the experience of the coach that you're interviewing is the number one most important thing to look for. And that's not just years in the industry, or the number of clients or athletes that they've trained. Those things are definitely hugely important, but it's does the coach have experience working with clients like you, clients that fit your demographic, right? Are you, if they typically train athletes who are 18 to 22 years old, how much experience do they have training somebody who's 55 and 30 pounds overweight and, diabetic or pre-diabetic, right? They might be an awesome, amazing coach, and they may be able to get you the results that you're looking for, but you do want to consider the fact, have they had other clients that fit your profile? And then they should be able to show examples of that too. don't be afraid to ask for either referrals from other clients, or if they have before and after pictures, case studies that they can show you as well. I did mention at the beginning that I spent nearly 15 years in collegiate strength and conditioning. Um, my experience in that time is vast. I mean, you won't meet many trainers who train more people than a college strength coach. I mean, I'm working with groups from 10 to 50 in the weight room. In 15 years, I trained probably over 3,000 athletes, but the atmosphere is different, right?
Hmm.
Um, I have a wide variety of clientele now, but I find the common thread is somebody who's leaning towards having a goal where they would like to do something athletic. It doesn't mean they necessarily uh, need to be competitive in something, but they have a goal to work towards. And those things are something like rock climbing, or doing a triathlon, or just being able to go for uh, a hike, a vacation hike with their friends, something like that. Um, that tends to be the clientele that connects with me the most, I would say. And to your point, I have plenty of people that are outside of that, that fall as outliers on that as well. But generally, the clients that I connect and I've had the most time with are those that have one goal after another goal. After they want to try this, they want to achieve this, they want to be good or great at this particular thing.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to ask for referrals. To your point, I will tell you in the 10, 11 years that I have been doing this now, I have only ever had one client when I interviewed with them actually ask me for referrals and actually called another one of my clients to say, "Hey, how long have you been working with Megan? Has she been good? What's the situation?" Everyone else, I do think like you and I were just talking before this call, that once you build up a little bit of a rapport in the area, friends just pass your number along. So, like, I have the situation where, now clients I've had for years, friends will come up, oh, I think about getting a personal trainer. Oh, use my personal trainer. Here's her number. And I so appreciate that. But, are they still a good fit for me? And I think that a lot of times we just go with who our friends are using, or, hey, you got my friends, I have this right now. Hey, you
Mm-hmm.
helped my friend lose 20 pounds. I'd like you to do that for me. Okay, like, but let's talk this through first.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not just automatically going to say, yes, I'll take you on as a client. Like, I'm going to go through the process. I should be interviewing you as much as you are interviewing me. And I would say that as you are shopping for your personal trainer, even if they come highly recommended from a friend or a family member, that there should be a back and forth interview process. Don't just assume, well, because you work for my friend Sally, you're going to work great for me. I would
Right.
say a big red flag is if you are sitting in that interview process and the trainer isn't asking you a lot of questions.
Yes.
Flags should start going off, alarm bells should start going off. And I'd love to hear, because I know you do this process, what are some of the
Yeah.
questions that you are asking your clients, and some of the things that should be brought up in the conversation
Mm-hmm.
during that interview process?
Yes, I would say if you get to the point where you are sitting down with a coach, or even having a phone conversation, and then there's some sort of follow up via email or something like that, the number one thing that they should be asking for is your health history. They should have some type of PAR-Q or health questionnaire to really dig into any previous injuries, health conditions, surgeries, um, any ailments, your past fitness experience, your level of experience, what we would call training age, right? They should be asking you all these questions, and they shouldn't be off the cuff. They should be in a formatted document that they are going to keep on file and that they can always reference back to, so that they have that documented. That should be first and foremost. Um, as you move through the interview process and you decide to go into, usually there's a complimentary session involved. Most trainers I know offer some type of complimentary assessment. That should include a signed waiver. Um, that legitimizes the process, that legitimizes the coach. Um, it's another piece of the puzzle that says, okay, this person has put time, effort into this. They care about me. This isn't just a money grab. Um, and then there needs to be a long conversation about your goals, and they need to sit down. They need to do a goals analysis with you. Typically, this is documented on paper as well, so that you can help to chart progress as you move along.
Hmm.
The important aspects, what I look at when doing a goals analysis with a potential client is setting the bar. What is the ultimate goal you'd like to achieve, whether it's to lose the 20 pounds or to climb Mount Everest, whatever it is. um, Collecting that information, comparing it to where are we right now, what are you doing, what things have you done, and then it's my job as the coach in that very conversation to build a bridge between those two. Because oftentimes, as human beings, I think we assume we can still do the things we used to be able to do when maybe we were a little bit younger, or our situation in life was a little bit different, right? Um, and that's not to devalue your ultimate goal or to say it's not achievable, but I personally want to build that bridge between where you're at right now, what you're willing to do, and what it's going to take to get you to that goal. And I need to be realistic. I'm not just going to say, "Oh yeah, 6 months, sure, we're going to climb Mount Everest." You haven't done anything up to this point, but that's completely achievable. Let's just get you through the door, and we'll get started today. You know. So I
I,
think those three things. Sorry, just to reiterate, those three things in the interview process. As you move forward, a health history, a signed waiver, and some type of goals analysis, all those things need to be written down and discussed.
Yeah. And I always loved it. Like I joke with people that really a personal trainer's busy season is not January. I feel like everyone gets the gym membership in January, but then come like end of March, April, everyone panics that it's almost swimsuit summer season. And then it's like, hey, in April, hey, can you help me lose 30 pounds by Memorial Day? No. Where were you back in February? But being realistic with the clients and setting those goals, I think is huge. I think the other thing with that documentation, something you absolutely should ask your trainer is how are they storing that documentation? A qualified health coach, nutrition coach, personal trainer, whatever it is that you're hiring in that fitness realm, they have signed when they got their certification a code of ethics, and one of those things is that they should remain HIPAA compliant.
Yep.
So I know for me personally in my office I have a filing cabinet with a lock on it. Each client I have their waiver, I have their part Q, I have their health history assessment, I have all their billing information, that kind of stuff, and it is under lock and key in my office. If I store any electronic data, I'm making sure that I'm working with my tech company, that whatever I'm using is properly securely protected. Even on my website, I pay an extra whatever a month to make sure it's also HIPAA compliant. Because you're giving a lot of information. And so making sure that that data is secure.
Absolutely. And to your point, in today's world with all the technology, uh, you will find that many of these different apps or companies that work with tech are amazing in making sure things are HIPAA compliant. They run into this uh, all day, every day with larger organizations or universities, schools, and big companies too. So that should be an easy thing for you as a potential client to check on.
Hmm. And then I think, another just housekeeping thing that you should always ask is, are they insured?
Yep.
And are they insured for where they're working? So I know a big question I get is, hey, I have a YMCA membership. Can you just train me there? No, I cannot. Unless I am an employee of the YMCA, I absolutely cannot go there. Most gyms have their own trainers that are W-2 employees and they are, specific. I know I personally have a relationship with one gym owner and I can pay a facility fee, use his facility, but then I have to make sure that my insurance covers his facility. I do a lot of in-home, more concierge style personal training where I come to your home, I bring the equipment. Well, heaven forbid something happens during one of our training sessions and you get injured. what you need to understand is your homeowner's insurance, your medical insurance may not cover that injury because you are under my care. So
Right.
I need to be insured in case of an injury. And I don't think that that's something a lot of people really think about or consider. They're just, oh, just come over my house and help me work out.
Yeah.
Okay, but what happens if something occurs? Are you prepared?
Yeah. And we can tie all that together. I think one, being employed by another organization, that legitimizes the process, right? There's a lot of self-employed trainers out there, but having their own LLC uh, legitimizes the process, right? And a lot of the certifications that you already mentioned, they have opportunities for you to buy your own personal insurance, even if you are a solopreneur, singular coach. You can buy your own coverage through those. So those are all important questions to ask and things to check on. And like you said, I spend a lot of time in home with clients too. So making sure we have all those coverages. If something were to happen, God forbid, both myself and the client are protected.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like I said, I just think there's a lot of things out there that people aren't aware of, which is why I'm so glad that we're doing this
Yeah,
today. And so we've gone over, making sure that they're credentialed, making sure that they've helped similar people, that they meet that demographic, that we're building that relationships, that the interview process is a two-way street, those housekeeping items, how are they storing your data? Are they insured? I think some of the other things to consider too is when you're talking to that trainer, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'd like to dive deeper, is how well the trainer is experienced in what you are going through. Um,
sure.
so for me, I really kind of call myself anymore a burnout coach because, I have the positive psychology and the health coaching and all the things, and it blends together. But I worked for 6 years in the oil and gas field industry, and I experienced burnout. I know what it's like to be in corporate America, working the 60 to 100 hours a week, trying to figure out how to make this health thing work, dealing with all the stress. So it's very easy for me to look at a client and be like, I totally get it. I understand, and help them build a program because I can think back to when I was in that. I also have an autoimmune disorder. I have Crohn's disease, and I understand what it means to have flare-ups or be changing your medications or like one thing that used to frustrate me too, and this is a topic I'm going to go on a little bit of a sidetrack here is, I used to get frustrated because I was on a heavy dose of steroids, which made me gain a lot of weight. So even though I was still eating healthy and I was trying to exercise, I really ballooned with water weight on a heavy dose of prednisone. And one of the things used to frustrate me was nobody wants to work with the fat trainer, right? But I think when you talk to the trainer, even though their appearance may not match, they might match you because maybe they have a health condition that you can relate to, and they can understand that better. And so, making sure that when we are developing these relationships, they're not completely superficial. Because I do know there was a lot of people that would go to the gym, and be like, "Oh, that guy has big biceps and tight abs. I want him to be my trainer."
Sure.
And it's like, yeah, but he went to school for, like, no offense to you. He went to school for exercise science. He's always been an athlete. He's in perfect health. You're over here, pre-diabetic, autoimmune disorder, had a kid. Like, he can't
Mm-hmm.
relate to that. So yeah, you look at that and go, well, that's the body I want, so that's the trainer I want. But I think
Mm-hmm.
we need to get deeper than that kind of superficial and really talk about, you as the trainer, what were your experiences, and who is it that you want to help, and making sure that when you are hiring that trainer that they are understanding of the experiences that you've been through.
Yeah. Um, I think that the opposite can be true there too, is they see that N of one in the gym with the abs, and they might be their only success story. That it might just be him, and he's never really helped anyone to actually be successful to accomplish that physique as well. But you're absolutely right. I think appearance does play a part of it, and can be a consideration. It's not the number one consideration, but and same for accomplishments too, in terms of, if you're hiring a powerlifting coach, was I the best powerlifter ever? No. I don't hold any state or national records, but I have experience in powerlifting, so I know what it's like to show up on meet day. I know what it's like to prep for 12 weeks for a meet. So I can help people through that. And again, I don't want to say that those are the be all and end all of when to hire somebody or who you should hire, but there's certainly something to consider. Um, Maybe your coach doesn't have the physique that's your ultimate dream physique, but it's definitely they should look like they've done the thing. They've been a part of this industry for some time. They should look like they work out. Um, but to your point, maybe they have experience from. I'll just use myself as an example, as someone who's always been on the heavier side. I've been overweight since I was younger. I've always battled on the nutrition front. But that just means I'm that much more invested in learning and figuring out what works for somebody like me. Um, I myself hired a coach at one point as a physique coach, and uh, I wasn't planning on entering a bodybuilding competition, but with that came a bodybuilding diet. And after about 2 weeks of eating white fish and rice all day, every day, there's no way that this is sustainable. It's not realistic for somebody like me. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I want for my life, right? Like I would love to have a six pack, but um, again, going back to goal setting, where are you and what are you willing to do in order to get the results that you're looking for? And I can personally say, I'm not looking forward to eating this diet every day and not enjoying a meal out here and there to reach that goal. So again, it's when you're interviewing a coach, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into a certain type of training or certain philosophy that's not going to work for you just because they might have experience with that result. Um, Developing that relationship, having those conversations, being honest as the person of what are you looking for? What are you willing to do? What are the things you struggle with? Right? You're coming to us as the expert, but this process is so highly dependent on you as the individual being forthright, being honest, and having those deeper conversations with your coach, developing that trust, that bond, that relationship, in order to actually be able to maximize the results. As you said, for somebody who has burnout, for somebody who's taking prescription drugs, knowing all of those things better informs the coach to be able to make decisions that are going to help you and actually paint a realistic picture of what your results are going to be and what the timetable for that might actually look like.
Mm-hmm. All right. And now I want to move on. So let's say you found your perfect coach, you've hired them. Now we're showing up. I always love it when I hire somebody new because it's like all right, now what? Do I have to go do burpees in front of you? Like, what is your process? Like when you typically are starting with a new client, I do the same thing where I do a complimentary, usually with that complimentary, I'm doing a fitness
Yep.
assessment, trying to figure out where their strengths are, what their flexibility is, making sure that whatever exercise program I develop for them is safe and effective. Once I'm through that, what does a typical training session look like? I'd love to hear like your process for that first and then training first.
Yeah. Yeah. So typically when I do an assessment, we can call it, or let's call it a complimentary session, right? Because I often let the potential client lead the way. Some lean towards more of an assessment style where we might do some mobility, flexibility, or strength testing, cardio testing. Others lean towards, I want to take it for a test drive. I want to see what a real training session would look like. Can we just do something along those lines? So that right there might predict what our first session, our first few sessions look like as we start to get a feel for each other and what we'll be doing. Um, I want to say that going back to our previous comments on me as a coach and what I'm looking for, somebody who has a long-term goal, right? So throughout this entire process, before we even get into our first session, I will make it abundantly clear that this is a long-term process. I am a coach that is going to train you, right? We're going to develop a training program. It's not an exercise program. We're not going to just spin the wheel 3 times a week and see what comes out on the other end and say, this is what we're going to do today, right? Some of it will be monotonous. Sometimes you're not going to be breathing heavy with your heart right through the roof and unable to catch your breath. That's exercise. That's doing something to get tired or to feel like you've accomplished something for today, but that doesn't mean it's actually contributing to your long-term goal. So with that said, walking into our first week together, our first few sessions, we'll start to collect a lot of data. We're going to uh, take you through a bunch of different movements, analyze your mobility, analyze your flexibility. I may or may not be pointing out certain things to you. I may or may not be coaching you up because sometimes if I just ask you to drop down into a squat, I want to see what that means to you from a natural standpoint without any sort of technique or cueing from me right off the bat. And we'll work on fixing things along the lines because again, it's a process. It's not a day one thing where we're just going to be able to wipe the slate clean, if you will. So depending on the client's goals, the first few sessions, we're going to start light. We may start with a little bit higher volume, more repetitions. We might only work on, say, 2, 3, 4 different major movements that are going to give us the biggest bang for our buck in terms of being able to see where you're at currently. And those are be foundational movements that we will progress through. And they might always look different. And when I say that, let's use the squat as an example again. We might start out with a bodyweight squat. We might move into a goblet squat, and then we might move into a front squat. We might eventually get to a barbell back squat. Maybe that's not something that you need to utilize for your goal. Maybe it's a biomechanical issue that makes that movement difficult for you, or maybe there's some pain. We might not ever progress to that movement, but the idea is that there's always some type of progression as we move through.
Awesome. So, how do you usually structure? And I know every coach trainer is different. How do you structure those sessions? So you said like I work with a couple
Yeah.
sessions. Do you have packages? Are you somebody that does cancellation fees? Like what are some of the things that people should expect, when they're talking to a coach or trainer about how this whole process works? How do I
Yeah.
purchase it? How do I move forward?
Sure. I think that's another great question that you want to ask before you sign up is how do you accept payment? Um, a lot of trainers will be cash. I mean, everybody probably is going to take cash. That doesn't mean they are or are not legitimate, but it might be a red flag if they are cash only. Again, you combine that with they don't have their own business or they don't work for somebody and they accept cash only. They might be a little bit of a fly by night operation. I've worked with clients in the past who are like, hey, I'm afraid to sign up because the last guy just took my money and disappeared and I never heard from him again. So, all the things that you can do to sort of put those fears at ease, I think are important. So it's good to ask, what's your payment process? What do your packages look like? And what does that look like if I need to rearrange my schedule or cancel? And I think what's really cool about the company I work with, the lab, is that we sell some pretty sizable packages when compared. I think the industry standard is probably 8 to 10 sessions, and coaches usually require those to be used in a given amount of time. So maybe like 8 sessions a month, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. We don't subscribe to that. When we have our packages, you can use those how you see fit at any time, which I think is always great. And I like to brag about it to potential clients and to our clients. But and what's the cancellation policy? Stuff happens in life, right? Sometimes we oversleep. Sometimes it's things more serious. All of those things are a possibility. Again, you don't want somebody who's just out to take your money. And if you're not there that hour, then it's just, that's an hour of the workday. It's a relationship. So with the understanding that, a 24-hour cancellation policy is very understandable. Mine personally is 12. We are concierge. So I have clients that might need to move their schedule or slide to a different time or might need to cancel last minute because something pops up at work. I think those are all really good things to ask. And good things to consider when you're moving into your session, into your packages. Now, I also think that the way that it's structured really depends on the client as well. In in me being straightforward with clients, someone tells me they want to train 1 day per week, I'm quick to say, look, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not trying to upsell you on this, but training for 1 day, 1 hour a week, if you're somebody who's not just absolutely committed to doing stuff on your own, if you really need that coach for guidance, 1 day per week is not going to get it done. So generally, I prefer to say, look, 2 days a week is going to be the minimum amount that we should meet. We can meet more, we can meet 5 days a week if you want. That's great for some people, but two is really going to be the bare minimum. And that's so that both you and I can make sure that you're getting the most out of this relationship. So, I think that's a good mindset to go into when you're interviewing a coach is I need to commit a pretty good amount of time, at least 2 hours a week, I would say, to doing this. In order to be successful and in order to have the appropriate relationship with my coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how I run mine too, is I work for a gym that was like, okay, well, when you buy this package, you have X amount of time to use it, otherwise you lose it. And then it's like, you have somebody that has a death in the family or they get really ill and they can't use it in
Yep.
that amount of time, or, oh, they had to take an unexpected trip. And it's like, it's not fair. I don't see it as fair. You paid for it, it's yours to use. I try to keep it that like, and to your point, I try to get most of my clients to meet me at least 2 days a week. So it's like, okay, well, if I know you're gonna meet me 2 days a week, 4 weeks in a month, 8 pack, and you'll
Yep.
renew it
Yep.
every month. And of course, I'm sure you do the same thing. The more you buy, the more you save. So I do a
Sure.
lot of husband and wife teams where I'll get like,
Yeah.
one of them from 8 to 8:30 and the next one 8:30 to 9 at their house, whatever their home gym is. And I'll do like a mega pack for them. Well, they'll buy a 20 pack
Mm-hmm.
at a discounted rate because they're paying for two people in one
Yep.
household. And,
Yep.
we want it to be fair. We want it to be accessible, but we want to make sure all parties are being treated fairly and equally. Um, and so, yeah, making sure that those packages and having those cancellation policies in place and in
Mm-hmm.
writing, I think should be part of that waiver process. I know I got burned very early on in my career that I would have these clients that would just like cancel an hour before, and then I'd have this weird gap. And it's like, I didn't have enough notice to move my next client up. So now I'm sitting at the gym, like twiddling my thumbs in
Mm-hmm.
between clients, and I'm not making money because the only time trainers get paid is when we are physically working with our clients. It's not like, oh, I can make this up in emails later. Like, if I'm not working, I'm not getting paid. So, understand, like, for some of us, that this is our livelihood, this is how we put food on the table for our kids. We can't have this happening all the time. I love that you do a 12-hour. I'm very similar. I do 8 business hours because I used to say 8 hours because usually within 8 hours, like, but then people would text me at like midnight for an 8 a.m. appointment. I'm in bed sleeping and I don't see it till the next morning. I'm like, I really didn't get 8 hours of notice. So I say 8 business hours in advance. And I do find that that helps. And to your point, being understanding. I think a good
Yeah.
trainer has enough clients. They've been through it. They've been the experience. You can't help it like today. We're here in Pittsburgh. We're supposed to get a snowstorm. Maybe you had a 6 o'clock appointment and you look out your window and go, "Ooh, it's not safe to drive." Don't come. Like let's be
Yeah.
reasonable. You have a death in the family. You get sick. A kid has to stay home from school. Unexpected things come up. I think most trainers are empathetic to that and will go
Mm-hmm.
okay and let it go and not charge you that cancellation fee or whatever the policies, but don't abuse it.
Yeah.
Because that does wreck. And like we talked about at the top of this hour was it is a relationship, and just
Yeah.
part of that relationship is being respectful of one another. We understand we're all human, things come up. But I do think that personal training is seen as a luxury item. And so a lot of people will take advantage of it. And, I think having a strict cancellation policy and being mindful that like this is how this person makes their living and they don't get paid any other way, is just something to be mindful of. Um, we're about to, we're coming up to the end of this. So what I'd like for you to do is give me like your top three, like big red flags. If you're working with a coach or trainer, what are like the three huge red flags that you're like, you may want to consider a new trainer or coach?
Yeah. I think we'll go back to experience and certifications. If they are the Instagram trainer, they look great, but their Instagram page is just all of them and their mirror selfies, but they aren't able to show themselves working with anybody, or they don't have those referrals or before and after pics of clients that they've worked with, or they never show themselves working with any clients. I think that's a huge red flag that, like you said, they're probably just reselling some sort of pre-formatted program and calling themselves a coach. Maybe they've gone through it, maybe they had success, and they think that their success equals everyone else's success as well. Um, I would say that the second biggest red flag would probably be somebody who is inflexible. The cancellation policy, I think, is a, a big identifier of that red flag. But throughout that whole conversation, there might be clues that they're inflexible. Again, is this person saying, "This is what we do, this is how we do it, and this is the way," and they're very dogmatic about their beliefs, and they're not willing to hear you out on maybe some past experiences you've had, things you really enjoy. Another thing I like to ask clients in an interview is, again, what's your history? What do you really like? What has worked for you in the past? In today's age, everyone's like, well, I really love my Peloton. Okay, well, we're going to make sure if you do Peloton 3 days a week, we're going to make sure that you can continue to do Peloton 3 days a week, because that's amazing. That's movement. That's getting you better, right? But if someone says, no, like, forget that from now on, cancel that Peloton subscription, we're doing things my way, that's probably a big sign that they're inflexible as well. So look out for those little red flags that lead to that big flag of them not really being willing to work with you. And then I would say my biggest pet peeve, and probably the biggest red flag, I think, and I think this is a little bit, it could be a little more personal for some folks. Maybe not everyone believes this way, but in my world, the way that I was educated and the people I learned from, right, is that, like, attention is everything. The attentiveness to your client, and at the lab we call it the 7-star experience. Everybody knows what a 4-star is. Everybody knows what a 5-star is. We strive to be 7 stars. That's above and beyond. So a coach who can think about all the little details throughout the training session. And when you're the client, you don't know what you don't know, right? But you do know how people make you feel, and you do know how people talk to you. So if it just doesn't feel great, like you feel like they could do a little bit more, then they probably could, and they probably should, because if that's your standard, then that's your standard. But what I mean by that is the 7-star approach is, I can't, I just, my heart goes out when I see trainers that are on their phones or having a full-on conversation with either another trainer or another client in the gym while they're supposed to be working with somebody, right? You get that person for an hour, your time, your attention is everything to them, right? You might be, Megan, you and I, we might be doing this 12, 14 hours a day, but it's 1 hour out of that person's day. They deserve our absolute best, whether it's 5 o'clock in the morning or your last session at 7 o'clock at night. Everybody in between deserves the same experience. So again, coaches that just aren't paying attention, they're on their phones, they're having conversations, they're leaning against equipment, right? Someone who doesn't clean up after themselves, they set a poor standard of stripping down weights after you're done using the equipment or putting equipment away, doing little things for you, making sure you're getting your water. If you don't have water, maybe they grab it for you. Maybe they grab you a sweat towel. All of those things are just little clues about what type of person that coach is. And again, those things might not be the make or break for you. They are for me. And I make sure I pay attention to those things, but it's a little bit like the shopping cart test for coaches, right? So I'd say that's the biggest red flag for me.
Yeah, that's one reason why I always like to leave about a 5 minute space in my session just to talk to my client and hear what's going on. They might be
Yeah.
having a change in their job. They might have a family member that's sick. And I think as you develop that relationship, you can tell like you're having an off day. They're not hitting the lifts. You can just
Hmm.
see the oomph is not there. And I think taking that time, like I always greet my people, we spend the first maybe 5 minutes talking. And I know that this is something that was you and I had discussed before, and we didn't quite get to it today, but was like, starting that session, how did you sleep last night? Did
Yeah.
you eat before this workout? What's going on? What's on your, so you can kind of know how to set the tone because some days they might come in and they
Yeah.
ate great, they slept great, they're on top of the world and they're ready to lift hard and lift heavy and get to it. And other days they're going to come in and be like, man, I slept like garbage. I didn't drink enough water yesterday. I've got this thing at
Yeah.
work that's really nagging on the back of my mind, and so knowing how to set the tone for the workout, because if they're having one of those days, they don't want that super hard workout. I think that comes back to your point of that flexibility, having the
Yep.
coach that can hear that, get that feedback, and be flexible to change the tone of the workout is really important. If you've got somebody that's like, well, sorry, this is what's on the agenda for today. I already wrote it your workout. So, and they're not flexible, I think that is a huge
Mm-hmm.
red flag. I think another thing too is you should absolutely ask questions as you do exercises. It used to drive me nuts as a new trainer that clients, well, what is this working exactly? What's the benefit of this? It used to drive me nuts. Like they were questioning my ability, but I think it was really good because if I were a trainer that couldn't answer those questions, maybe I'm not qualified to be working on this. So
Yeah.
I think you should be asking questions and trying to treat your training sessions as also a learning experience for yourself because, someday your trainer might decide they don't want to be a trainer anymore or you might move away and you want to
Hmm.
make sure that you have enough knowledge about you, your body, why you're working the way you are, why this is getting you towards your goal so that even should you need to go through the whole hiring process again, you know what to look for. You kind of know the kind of workout that works for you. You can explain that to the next coach. That's why even in the interview process, one of the questions I ask is, have you ever worked with a coach or trainer before? What did you like and dislike? So that we can address those up front. But we are out of time. So for anyone that's got Q&A, I'm going to stop the recording. We're going to get to that. But before I stop the recording, Sam, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in hiring you as their trainer this year?
Yeah, probably the easiest way to get a hold of me directly is via email. And my email address is sam@youneedthelab.com. That's youneedthelab.com. I'm also on Instagram, Twitter, all of those things, social media at Coach Sam Whitney. And you can reach out to me there as well. And I'll be happy to connect and answer any questions. Doesn't necessarily mean we have to work together, but I'm here as a resource for anybody who's interested.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I appreciate your time today. This was recorded. We're going to put it out on YouTube and be reaching out. We had about 15 people registered for today. I know we had people popping in and out while we were talking. So we'll get this recording out to everybody. And so thank you so much.